it used to happen in the past that there were marriages that didn't work out. Right? But I remember as a youngster that divorce in the film community was extremely rare. Unfortunately, today, it almost seems to be epidemic. Right? And I see young couples, they get married, everybody dances and have a great time. A year later, the marriage is gone. And I think what's happened is that, first of all, our young men and young women today are totally unprepared for what are the responsibilities of marriage. Right? And the Stapelo said it so beautifully. Right? And a person with the authority of the Stapelo. The Stapelo said, "Was will der von dem jungen Mann? Sie schon 10 Jahre, was nicht scheiches nur mit seinen Ständer." Right? He says, what do you want from this young man? Right? For the past 10 years, the only relationship he has is with the Ständer. And the Ständer doesn't make any demands of him. Right? And now he goes into a marriage, and now he's for the first time in a relationship where there's another person that has needs and wants. And this never happened to him before. He doesn't know how to deal with it. Right? So I think that we need that our young men and young women must be better educated in preparation for marriage, and realizing that granted, there's a lot of gratification that one gets in a marriage relationship, but not to go into a marriage with the aspect of, I'm going to get a great deal out of this, right? Because then you build up expectations and you're disappointed. Right? But you go into the marriage, first of all, with the Chachamim said, the first bracha under the chuppah is Shahakar B'ol L'choyda. Right? What are you telling the Chosin Kala? Right? You're telling the Chosin Kala, the purpose of marriage is to set up a family that's going to be Kvod Shemayim. Not your gratification, not your gratification, but Kvod Shemayim. Secondly, they tell them, Hashem created a mensch. What do you mean Hashem created a mensch? The difference between a mensch and a behemoth is that a behemoth does only things selfishly. A behemoth has no idea of chesed. Right? And as I tell them, remember, you're a mensch. Right? You have a responsibility of chesed. And the responsibility of chesed is toward the husband, toward the wife. Very interesting. The great Reb Chaim Vital makes an enormously important statement. He says a person spent his whole life doing chesed, chesed, chesed. And now, after his 120 years, he comes up to the Beis Shalmaila, and he knows they're going to open the doors of Gan Eden for him and take him right to Avraham Avinu. Right? And he comes and finds the doors of Gan Eden are closed, and Beis Shalmaila will not let him into Gan Eden. And he says, where's the justice? What about all my chesed? And the Beis Shalmaila says, we looked at how you behaved at home. You did chesed out of the community, right? But you did not behave with chesed toward your wife. Right? And if you did not behave with chesed toward your wife, all of the chesed that you did out in the community does not count.
Connected kuah. Connected. It's like
it doesn't count, right? Okay? And he said they right? They don't bring up any of the chesed. He forfeited all because he was inconsiderate and not behaving with chesed toward his wife. And I think that's what our young men and young women have to learn, that the basis of marriage is to do chesed with each other.
How is married life different now vis-a-vis, let's say, 20 years ago, in terms of for yourself, in terms of how it's in their interaction or sort of the relationship or the sort of experience?
Well, look, one of the things that's happened that's affected people is that, and the Stapler says that so beautifully, the Stapler says when he grew up, there was so little that people didn't have expectations. Right? To get a fresh fruit was a tremendous mitzvah. Candy was unheard of. Right? And for Pesach, you got a new suit. What means a new suit? Right? That your older brother's suit was tailored to fit you. Right? He says we grew up with very little, so we didn't have any expectations. He says today, we grow up with so many things handed to us on a silver platter. And also, with all of our technology, it happens immediately. You don't have to wait for it to happen, right? That people bring that expectation into marriage. and they expect self-gratification, and they expect it to be immediate, and when it's not coming, they're very disappointed and disillusioned. So I think that I've watched the relationship, husband-wife relationships 70 years ago, and I've seen them now, and I've seen there's been a total difference because of this enormous impact that our culture has, that you get what you want and you get it quickly. Carnation Milk advertises milk from contented cows. What does that mean? Well, the producer wants you to know that his milk is the best. Why? Because it comes from the finest cows. Why are his cows the finest? Because they're contented. Oh, contentment is the excellence for a cow. Right? Well, if the only thing that I look for in my life is to be content, then I share a goal in life with a cow. Right? And traditional psychotherapy did not have the idea that the goal in life is not tranquility and contentment, but the goal in life is what the Mesillas Yesharim says. What do you see as your purpose in existence? Right? And that's why I stress Mesillas Yesharim so much, and I've written about Mesillas Yesharim, made tapes about Mesillas Yesharim. And the most important thing about Mesillas Yesharim is right at the beginning. What is your obligation? You're here for a purpose. You're not an accident. You've got a mission. You've got something to accomplish in life. That has to be your prime focus. And when that's your prime focus, then it affects everything that you do. It affects you as an individual. It affects how you relate toward your family. It affects how you react socially, occupationally, with the goal. I have a goal that I was put for.
Someone finds themselves being slightly, they feel they're living slightly dysfunctional. Like Yiddishkeit requires you show up for minyan, and you're trying to do the minyan and trying to do your shiurim that you're supposed to read or whatever it is, and you're finding yourself difficult. You find a strain. You're being able to perform all those tasks. There's a slightly. Is that a sign of an addiction, or is that how would you categorize young people that, let's say, for example, young people or people that see that there's a limit to them being able to lead a very disciplined, protracted, disciplined lifestyle?
Well, if a person has any limitations, I'm not talking necessarily physical limitations, but has emotional and mental limitations, then the question he has to find out. He has to have an assessment and evaluation of what is realistic for him, what he can do and what he cannot do. But on the other hand, Shlomo HaMelech talks about the person who is simply lazy, right? And doesn't want to exert himself. And as I pointed out, today with all the technology has done for us to make things easy, people think that they don't have to exert themselves. There's got to be an easy way to do this thing, right? And the answer is no. There isn't always an easy way to do these things. The tafkid that we have, the goal in life is, for example, have a meilim b'Torah. Not enough to learn Torah, right? But you have to toil and work in Torah, and that's where we find our tradition of our great gedolim about how they were a meilim b'Torah. They put their whole effort into it. So. I think that if a youngster finds themselves having difficulties with keeping up with whatever, I think that they need to be evaluated as to, is this something that they have a limitation for, and what can they realistically expect of themselves? Or on the other hand, is it just that they don't want to make the effort?